So yeah, Michael, welcome back. And
Thanks for having me.
For everybody who's watching, we already have like a part one of this series, and I try to wrap up what we talked about. So people might get interested in watching the first part in the beginning. That is quite helpful, I guess. So the question was, is Bitcoin a language from a higher intelligence, which is quite hard to understand in a single byte? So we first talked about what language is. We talked about compression of information, about memes, for example, which is a kind of language. We talked about mathematics as a form of language. And I guess I said it's probably the most condensed, compressed form of language ever been. This is why so many people struggle about it. Maybe. We talked about the role of prime numbers within that language. And then we talked about money as a language of when we try to express what we value, and that actually everything evolves around money. Everything is downstream from money, you can say. And in the end, we talked about Bitcoin being probably the upgraded language version of the money we have. And then I guess you needed to run to get dinner with your parents who were already waiting for you.
Yes.
So why I asked to record like the second part, what I'm really interested in. So if we stop at that point, money and Bitcoin being a language, you could probably draw like analogies, like you have a single sound, for example, in the language to express things, which could be Satoshis, right? So it is the smallest unit you have. It's a sound, but on their own, they don't carry any meaning, right? So you need other, let's say, aspects of a language to make it work, which would be transactions. Satoshi itself doesn't mean anything unless there is a transaction, which could be words, exchange.
Transaction shapes the context of the Satoshi.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, yeah. It puts it into a context.
Right. So,
and that communicates it to us in a way.
And if you think of that, a transaction is like exchanging words between us, which have a form of meaning within that. Blocks being maybe sentences. Let's not get too serious with that.
Yeah.
A writing system could be the cryptography, the chain we have.
Yep.
And if you like have in general narratives, what could be like the time chain, what we will actually the Bitcoin historical record, right? What we will talk about like in the next minutes. And now what I was interested in, very important for language, is grammar, right? So if you don't have grammar, you probably don't have any language that makes any sense. So Bitcoin especially has a form of grammar. So it's the consensus rules, how you interact with the protocol, right? And after our last session, I had the idea that when you sent me the article about time traveling and time locking Bitcoin, I thought maybe it's a form of grammar you invented for the language Bitcoin. So for everybody listening, this is why it makes sense to maybe listen to the first episode to make sense of that. And I'm trying to wrap what you wrote in your article for the Bitcoin magazine in 10 sentences. I tried it. So please give me feedback if I probably understand what you were trying to say, because at some points I got lost when you talked about wormholes. I wasn't sure if I'm still on track, so I tried to wrap that up so we have a basis to talk about. We will put the link to your article in the description.
Sure.
As well. So
awesome.
The first would be, new Bitcoins are created as a reward for miners who compete to process and confirm all global Bitcoin transactions using energy and specialized hardware. I mean, this is quite easy, right? This is the basis. The second step is this energy and computing power becomes proof of work, a signal for a real effort that secures the Bitcoin network from manipulation and fraud. Quite common and easy as well. The third one is the amount of new Bitcoin given as a reward gets cut every 4 years. Also cool. For one day, the rewards will stop completely. And this is around the year 2140. And what kind of coincidence? This is actually where my grandchild June is living. This is the year where you don't get any rewards anymore for securing the network as a miner. And now there is a question coming up. If no new Bitcoins can be created as a reward, what will motivate people to secure the network and process future transactions? This is basically the groundwork for what you write about.
Yes, that's right.
6, the idea, lock Bitcoins today in special addresses that can only be unlocked at a specific time in the future. So you own Bitcoin today, you put it in a, could we also say wallet, special address where you save it, nobody can access it, not even you, and in the future it unlocks it, right? These special addresses are made public and visible to everyone, which might seem confusing at the very beginning, but it makes sense. Point 8, in the future, people will compete to be the first to open them, again, using enormous amounts of energy and investing in technology, driving innovation. That's the core idea, I guess. 9, accessing these time-locked Bitcoin pools becomes the new incentive to secure the network instead of mining rewards, like today. 10, we send our energy through time to future generations so Bitcoin remains immutable and secure. My question would be, would that sum up your article?
Yes, I think that's a really far less hand wavy and more succinct explanation than I would give. Yes.
Okay. So I try
Yes.
to dumb it down for
No.
myself.
Exactly. That makes sense. 100%. Yep.
Now, what you're saying with that is you're building some kind of incentive structure for future generations.
Yes.
This is why I say this is how we interact with Bitcoin, how we deal with that language. This is why I say, okay, Michael, probably you just invented a grammar, how Bitcoin is going to work as a language between humans in the future, because it will drive how this language is used and how people behave, right?
Yeah.
And in general, would you add anything to that explanation?
I think the only maybe would be the why. You know, and the why is what you mentioned, which is the rewards run out. And the motivation, the best time to do something like this is yesterday, always, because the opportunity, like how much it's going to cost you is going to be far greater. If Bitcoin keeps appreciating, then it's going to cost you a lot of money. You know, because basically, right, if you donate one Bitcoin now, that's $100,000. But if you did it 10 years ago, it'd be closer to, you know, $1,000. And it'd be like, oh, well, I should have done it then, because then I could have locked way more coins in the future. So I think that's the only part. But I mean, all together, it is like that. You know, you want to, when people ask me about it, I say, well, I'm tired of hearing people today say that, oh, well, Bitcoin's reward cycle runs out. What's going to happen then? And the common answer from the community is weak, in my opinion. It's terrible, which is,
What
oh,
is the
well,
common
it
answer?
Pardon?
What is the common answer?
The common answer is, well, the miners still have block reward fees from the transactions. So because people are still sending transactions, that makes up the incentive. I don't think that's good enough. And I think that if you want to get people, Bitcoin miners are a very special breed. They're not like us. To be a Bitcoin miner, you need to pour concrete. You need to lift heavy machinery. You need to have thermodynamic understanding, electrical engineering. So it's a very hardware-driven world. And when it's a hardware-driven world, that requires a lot of planning and time. So, if I wanted to become a big Bitcoin miner tomorrow, I'm still 18 months away because I've got to secure the machines. I got to get a lease on a property so that I can have all these machines somewhere. I got to organize all my energy so that I can basically make sure I'm getting efficient energy. These things take time. And so in the Bitcoin world, you want a miner to be able to know there's as much rewards coming as possible. So let's say the rewards ran out in 2 years' time. Do you think you're going to start a mining operation today? Probably not, because you're saying, well, it's not worth it. It's going to be done in a minute. And so the idea is that as the network reaches this point where the halvings have been so aggressive, they're almost at the bottom. You want to give a motivation for a miner to say, no, I'm turning my machines on definitely. And the way that I think about it is like, when the rewards get smaller and smaller, the certainty of traveling forward towards in the future, like as in the blocks keep going, the certainty starts to shrink, like the absolute certainty that a block will be mined, because the miner incentive is decaying. And as the incentive decays, there should be a natural response from the participants of the network that would go, they should have some more doubt start creeping in. And that doubt will lead to 1 out of 10 maybe, or 1 out of 100 people not continuing their mining operation because they don't believe that they can see the finish line. I think about it a little differently. I think of miners like Magellan traveling across a big ocean, uncharted territory. They don't know if it's going to work or not, right? But if we put the block rewards in the future, it's like a lighthouse at the end for Magellan. So he's traveling through these dark waters all the time, and he's like, oh, there's light on the horizon. If you're on a ship traveling through the darkness and then you finally see a light, imagine what that does to the morale of the people on the ship. That absolutely boosts them,
And definitely, I mean, look, if you sail across the ocean and you would be able to discover a new continent, it's a hell of a reward.
Yes, that's a massive reward.
And you will get fucking rich, right?
Yes.
But if you just sail and the territory is known, that's a different deal, right? It's just like, you can get there and you can maybe ship cows, and you will attract people who are interested in shipping cows, right? Back and forth. But you wouldn't, and that's probably, I would say, the interesting or the most important part. You wouldn't probably attract those individuals who do like crazy efforts to get the latest technology, right? And you need those to actually secure them against the technology that is available to the rest of the market to really fuck with Bitcoin, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there needs to be a better incentive structure than just block rewards.
Yes.
And I think you can live off that. I mean, look at PayPal, look at Deutsche Bank, all of them, they live quite well off like transaction fees and other stuff, but transaction fees. But it's actually, you need people who are really more cypherpunk than just transaction fees. So my question would be, if you look around in the world, what makes you think that people would understand what the issue is now to do that? Do you really think?
You mean, why would they think that the block reward running out is an issue?
Is an issue, and even more, like, take the money I own today and basically give it away to someone I don't even know.
Yeah.
So this is like next level understanding of what's good for humanity, and we actually quite poorly manage it today.
Yeah. Basically, that's sort of it, right? Like, we are very fortunate today. Very fortunate. Now, we've got our problems and stuff, but we're very fortunate in the context of Bitcoin. Like, we throw around sats on Lightning Network, $10, 10 sats here, 1 sat here, you're throwing these small denominations around. But the amount of energy, if you think about the end of the block reward is 1 sat per block, 1 Satoshi. We're throwing that around willy-nilly. Just like, oh yeah, like you've got old phones with Satoshis on it that you forgot about, right? In that way, if we think, well, what's all the energy? How much energy is going to be fighting for that 1 Satoshi? And then that sort of starts making an exchange rate between energy versus Satoshi. So how much energy per Satoshi? If the Bitcoin miners are big today and Bitcoin's still going in years to come, they are going to be behemoths, like absolute behemoths. And so you want them to be on your side, right? And so I think that like today, like back in the day, hundreds of years ago, people might have planted trees and they go, I'm going to plant them. Yes, I don't get to see the tree grow big and tall, but someone is going to sit under it and find shade on a hot day, and that's going to make them happy. And it's sort of like that, where you go, okay, I'm going to plant these in the time chain, all in the future. And the goal is that everyone has the private key. So everyone's got the winning lotto ticket to cash in. It's just basically you've got to be first to cash it in. And then people go, well, obviously that's stupid. And it's like, that's going to be a Bitcoin miner, because Bitcoin miners, right, if they've also got the key and they mine the block, they're going to be like, yeah, and I also pay myself this huge reward. So for them, they're going to be like first in, best dressed. But the reward is so large. So to put it into perspective, the reward is 50 million block rewards. So 50 million Satoshis is the reward. So imagine today, that's like the equivalent of a block coming out in, tomorrow, and that block having 1 million Bitcoins in it for the winning miner. Obviously, you, me, my uncle, my grandpa, my grandma are all going to be mining Bitcoins. And we're all going to go, all right, well, we have to go for it. We may as well take a chance because there's 1 million Bitcoin block, right? Or better question would be probably 50 million block. So what the idea is that the incentive is going to be so astronomically big that it's actually not statistically in their best interest to try and mine it themselves. It's their best interest to all work together, where they go, hey, if you win it, Patrick, I'll go halves with you. And if I win it, you go halves with me. So it's sort of like everyone will have to hold hands. The smartest decision would be everyone to work together to mine the block and then split the reward amongst everyone else. Because if you go yourself, you're not really giving yourself the best chance, because the block reward is basically a really big arbitrage, where it went from 1 Satoshi to then 50 million Satoshis. And so I think putting these lights at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, these rewards, they will increase the probability of a miner coming online. Basically, that's just the most general, broad way to think about it. They increase the probability of a miner coming online. Now, that increases the network security and increases the network's longevity or chances at longevity, right? It also helps refute a lot of today's negative discussions about the block reward. Oh yeah, Bitcoin's good, but the block reward's going to run out. It's like, no, it isn't anymore. And the way that you do it with time locks, people say, why do it with time locks? Why would you lock your coins into the future in this magical address and give everyone the key? And it's like, well, Bitcoin's been very good to us, right? As a species. I don't know, as a person, as an individual, it's given me so much new thoughts and opened my brain up to what's actually possible. And so I thought that having a contribution, like my brother calls it Trevi Fountain. You know the fountain in Rome where people throw the coins in and hope for good luck? Yeah, my brother calls it Trevi Fountain because it's like I've flicked a coin 100 years away. And it's like, say, this, it's a pretty interesting case study, I suppose. But the number one thing is that you do it without breaking the rules. So you don't need to increase the number of coins in circulation. You don't need to change the block size. You don't need to change the difficulty period, anything like that. It doesn't break any rules. It doesn't step on anybody's feet. The only thing it does is it adds value to the next generation of people that are coming.
So it's to get it right, it would be a solution that is basically off chain.
Yeah, essentially, almost. The private key, the private key that unlocks this treasure chest or these treasure chests, they live in everyone's head. The idea is that I didn't put it on chain, so I didn't put it into an OP return, which is you can put little messages on Bitcoin. I didn't put it there because part of the experiment is can you basically transfer information across 100 years?
Yeah.
Not peg it to the Bitcoin blockchain, but can you transfer it off chain into people's minds for them to carry it along into the future? And so it's like the easiest way to think about it is sort of like I've put a big sign in the middle of the Saudi Arabian desert, and below it, it's pointing with a big arrow saying, dig here, lots of oil. And that's basically what it is. And it's giving everyone a treasure map for 100 years away. But I think it's actually probably got a chance to do more than that based on the scale. I know this sounds really stupid, but if we think who's going to be around then, well, June, your granddaughter's going to be around, but we're going to have machines. Like we'll probably be a two species where we kind of mix man and machine. So we'll both all be competing for it. But what it does is at that point in time, the biggest common problem in physics isn't the equations, it's the energy requirements. We need a lot of energy to do cool things. So to get a rocket to Mars, we need a lot of energy. To travel between galaxies, we need infinite amounts of energy to travel at light speed. And so if today's value has a proxy for energy, so every Satoshi or block or Bitcoin or whatever has an approximate amount of energy that it took to mine. And what is that worth in barrels of oil? And then you could proxy out, okay, each Bitcoin is approximately 10 barrels of oil or whatever. And every year it grows 25% against oil. And so I'm like, well, if I can donate 50 million Satoshis or 50 million blocks, what's that going to be in barrels of oil? And it approximates out to like 10 squillion trillion barrels of oil, basically. And like the maths is that it would go around the universe like 10 to the 350 times, basically infinitely. And so I was like, okay, well, in physics, they're probably between now and 100 years, they will probably get the math right. Like there's basically 5 or 6 equations left in maths for us to solve. And then after that, that cracks open the entire universe. And even if we did that, we still wouldn't have the energy capacity to take advantage of that. And so my idea was, there's the Bitcoin part, which is keeping the incentive in the system going. But there's also the off-chain part, which is what is the species at the other end doing? And if there are species like us in 100 years with all the mathematical answers and a big giant rocket ship waiting to launch, but they've got no energy, this Bitcoin, the Bitcoin that is locked, can provide a subsidy for that energy to send them around the universe or whatever, like basically is the idea. And so I think for me,
If you have gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you know how it transforms your thinking and your life. But then something strange happens. Suddenly, your friends and family can't follow. You start seeing the world differently, and it gets lonely. That's why I created Satori Island, a curated community for people who believe Bitcoin could change more than just the economy. If you feel this revolution runs deeper, touching how we live, how we grow, how we relate to each other and to the world, then this is your invitation. Many of us feel the same, excited but isolated. Satori Island is where that changes. A shared space for learning, co-creating, and personal growth. Yes, we talk about Bitcoin, but also about what comes next, how we as humans and as a society evolve in the face of AI, robotics, and the deep systemic change. We explore personal health, spiritual development, and philosophy, not as experts, but as people with questions. Go to satoriisland.com or just send me a message on X. I reply personally. And if you are a Bitcoin creator yourself, you know the effort it takes. Hours of content, weeks of research, sharing your heart and your mind. And yet, sometimes it's hard to truly connect with your audience. It's hard to interact and to learn from them, and even harder to build something sustainable from it. That's why I'm looking for 3 to 5 creators who feel this too and want to build something meaningful together. No big following required, no perfect plan, just vision, honesty, and the willing to build something real. I'm just starting to think a subsidy, how I see it. I'm wondering if you mean the same. So what I'm thinking is, if it's obvious that it will be put more and more energetically effort into mining each Satoshi, and securing them in the future, whatever. So it will probably be an amount of energy we can't even imagine today. That's for sure.
Literally, yeah.
So,
like we can't fathom it.
What I'm very interested in, you already today, maybe that's easier to grasp. Today, we have a lot of discussions how bad Bitcoin is for the environment, but how I actually see that is it really gives you an effort to make your brain work to figure out better ideas to get better energy. This is the incentive behind that, right? So, and this would continue for the next 100 years. So I was wondering, I'm pretty convinced that the problems we have today wouldn't be an issue at all in 100 years. Otherwise, we wouldn't develop. I don't think so.
No, we wouldn't have developed. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, you can calculate that in barrels of oil, but probably in 100 years, they would say, like, you are fucking stupid burning that shit from the ground.
Of course, there'll be some way better electromagnetic, 0 point energy and stuff. But if they never changed it, we get to see comparatively the scale of it. Like, obviously, I think Bitcoin mining is going to go through tremendous innovations, but if no innovations happened, at a minimum, this is what it's probably going to be doing. And on the upside, if we've had huge technological innovations in energy extraction, like basically the ability to capture energy, then that's going to be even more wild. And Bitcoin does incentivize energy optimization. Like, people like to talk about it in this, it's bad for the environment. But, all the miners that I know all want renewable. I don't mean renewable like a battery. I mean renewable like a flowing river where they can get hydroelectric indefinitely. And that's what they do. You want to know who the biggest tight asses in the world are? Bitcoin miners, because they're in the most competitive game on earth. Like, the most. It is so cutthroat. So if you find an energy source, that's like a monkey finding a watering hole in the middle of the desert or, in the middle of Africa. It's like, oh my God, gentlemen, we have struck gold today, and that's kind of the same thing. So all the big miners in China back in the day, I never thought about it, but when I was hearing about it, talking to them, it was always about hydro. And I was like, why? And they go, they have all this excess energy because it produces X. And it's like a bakery. We made 1,000 bread rolls today. We only sold 900. Does anyone want to buy these bread rolls? They're 60% off because they're fresh today and we throw them out. Great, I'll buy them. That's exactly what the miners do. They walk up to the hydroelectric dam and they go, hey man, and they go, hey dude, we've made 100% of our energy today, but we've only sold 60% of it. And you go, oh dude, well, I know a guy who would buy it, but not at those prices. Oh, okay, well, we'll give it to you at a discount because we're not going to make any money on it anyway. So old mate wheels his big Bitcoin mining rig up, chink, plugs it into the PowerPoint, and he's off. But that's kind of what they do. So they are, in my opinion, they are like the best thing you could ever dream of for optimizing energy in the cleanest way possible, because they need it to be the cleanest way possible, because clean is persistent. You know, you don't want to build a big mining rig to tap into some oil well or some shit that's got a month to go. You go, no, we need something we can set up shop, we're going to be good, and we can actually establish a presence around this energy source. And that's why hydroelectric dams, things like that.
It just makes click in my head. I thought about that a lot, and so I went to Norway, and they did exactly that. So what? So they have a lot of excess energy in the north of the country with hydro, but even transporting it to the south, where most of people live, the energy evaporates.
Yes,
right. A lot of that
dissipation. Yeah.
So they just build rigs in the north, feeding them with the free energy they have. So it's very interesting. And what you just said is,
they also do it. In Norway, I was going to say, one of the beauty things about like a lot of the mining operations in places like that is free cooling. So a lot of the because so now I'm now even more energy efficient. My server farms or Bitcoin mining rigs, which are basically server farms, we don't need a whole bunch of insulation stuff to keep these at a certain temperature. You just keep the door open and just
it gets even wilder.
It
gets even wilder.
Yeah.
I visited a site like next to the airport in Oslo, and what they build, it's an AI IT system, huge thing they build,
data center or something.
Yeah. So what they actually do is they use a new I forgot the name of the liquid, but they developed a new system, and now the excess heat, they pump it to the airport and heat the airport.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's freaking cold, but it's still fucking freaking hot. And then they use that to heat. And in the north, I guess they sometimes even do it with little villages. So you get the excess heat you can pump through. So it's very interesting. And
people, you know, there's a thing called a bit heater, I think it is.
Yeah,
and that's a Bitcoin miner.
It's a German or Austrian company.
Yeah, I think something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but things like that. And you see people powering their homes or powering their air conditioning, or you know their heater in winter. It's coming from their Bitcoin mining, which is producing heat, and that's heating their home. And it's so interesting. These little things matter because these little things are persistent. This is anyone can do it. You can heat your home if you want to plug in Bitcoin miners, and along the way you might get a block. Or you know, you put you basically might win some Bitcoins in the process. And so it's always got this 1 and 1 makes 3 outcome where it's like that's just it's really powerful incentives like that.
And you know what, when I listened to that for the very first time, I thought like, there's something wrong. This sounds too good, and why don't people do that? Like for the last 50 years, or at least like the last 15.
Yeah.
But it's like, it makes so much sense. And I was there, and it's like, and it's not even complicated. It's very, very simple.
Very straightforward. Yep.
And there was one thing I almost forgot about that. I thought about that stuff a lot, even when I was there in Oslo. And one thing you just said is very interesting. I never thought about that. So the cleaner the energy, the more persistent it is. So if the sun goes out one day, we have bigger issues than not mining Bitcoin, probably.
That's exactly right.
Right. So the sun, and this was actually, I also talked to a project in, I guess it was Angola in Africa. They built a hydro dam for, it's so amazing, for a German renewable project from the government, and in the end it was never built. So they had a huge dam with excess energy in the middle of nowhere. So I thought that would be very interesting. So hydro is, I mean, that a river runs out of water is probably, I don't know, it's like, okay, it's more probable than the sun stops to shine. Yeah.
But for the river to run out of water, it means like the process of nature must break, because the water keeps running because of the atmospheric pressure, evaporating the water, picking it up, putting it down, and all that sort of stuff. So basically the machinery of the climate would have to break for that to stop almost.
Yeah, and what I wanted to add is, if you think in barrels of oil, seriously, I've never thought of that. And then you have a crisis in Ukraine, and the prices go up. You are fucked. You are out of business overnight as a miner. So there is no sense in not using not renewable. I never thought about that.
It's a very big. Well, see, miners need certainty, right? Because they are walking into. Well, they don't need it, but good miners want it, because if you can't control, like, that's why they go, oh yeah, we've got a fixed electricity price. We've got a contract for 3 years with the state of Texas to get these prices from their energy grid or whatever. But if you go on a variable energy price, and it's like you can't plan because you never know when you're going to hit a block, but you do want. So that's your biggest thing. Your income stream is variable, which means if your income stream is variable, everything else must be fixed almost, because otherwise you have too many moving pieces that become sort of all wobbly and they don't ever stand up. And so that's why persistence is the strongest element for these miners, where they go, well, we can't have loose ends and buts and maybes and hopes and wishes. We need everything to be rock solid, because we're about to start the most competitive, competition known to man. And so,
and you align not incentives but goals. Because if you have a look on the oil industry, for example, maximum profit, right? Maximum profit is the goal. And if you say having consistent energy is more in line with what humanity actually needs, than making more money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I know exactly what you're saying.
So you have an industry which is way more in line with what brings humanity forward.
It's positive sum.
Right. And again, it sounds too good to be true. It's like, especially with mining, I saw people really, a lot of people struggle with Bitcoin in general, but the mining thing was like, you can't use that much energy and be good for the planet. So fuck, yeah, you can.
Yes, you absolutely can.
And the most interesting part about that, without like leaving the track we're on right now, is there is something planted in our head that using energy is bad.
Yep.
And this is just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's like using.
That's exactly correct, which is people think that energy consumption is bad. Yep. No, because most of the energy consumption, the bad part is in the extraction process, where the extraction process requires 3,000 tons of diesel machines to dig, these gigantic holes in the earth to try and figure this out and that out. That's where the equation starts breaking down. Just like if you look at renewable energy, there's a reason why they call it renewable and not regenerative, because renewable means I can keep getting more of it and then using it on the same thing. Regenerative is like a river. It'll keep flowing. But renewables, the active ingredient is cobalt. So cobalt, we don't have infinite amount of cobalt in our planet. So it's not renewable at all. It's just you can recharge your battery. Sure, that doesn't mean it's renewable though. That's like saying, oh, I've got a water bottle. Oh, that's a renewable one? And it's like, no, I can just fill it up with more water again. But if I don't have water, it's not renewable anything. Like if there's no water in my tap, it's not renewable nothing. And so there's a big difference, but that's the term they give. They very deliberately say renewable and not regenerative, because renewable feels like regenerative, but it's very, very different. And so I think I think the incentive, we talked last time about information, right? And we talked about how we are sort of at the tail end of information almost, where we've discovered a lot. We're almost at this capacity. The Earth goes through different phases, or humanity, goes through different phases. We had the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, whatever. We've had the Information Age, and I think we're at the end of that. And we're about to we are probably in the middle of the transition into what will be called the age of energy. And that's where, just like information, the first piece of information, like digital, was a 1 megabyte computer, and it was the size of, a library. And that was, IBM's first 1 megabyte computer. What we've figured out is how to compress information really aggressively now into 1 terabyte, the size of my fingertip or whatever. We're going to do the same with energy, because we had a very big incentive to figure out information, because our capitalist environment was driven by the internet boom and the information boom with the personal computer and all that. And so as we become obsessed or we incentivize information propagation, which is what the internet was. Like if you're an internet business, we're going to incentivize people there's opportunity there. Now we're going to go through the same level of rigorous compression, but with energy. So right now, yes, Bitcoin miners might need, we're not as optimized. We're at the 1 megabyte computer that's the size of a house right now. Yeah. But if Bitcoin keeps becoming the be all and end all, everyone is going to be pointing their guns at studying basically the best way possible for extracting energy. And that's where we will go through things like people will work on 0-point energy. People are going to work all these breakthroughs that we deem never possible or never thought of. We now have a carrot to make them. Not just, hey, here's a bunch of nerds in, Oxford University and MIT that are working on this little thing about how the ether carries electromagnetic radiation or whatever. It's like, no. Here's some people that are desperate to figure it out because their entire life depends on it. It's not a side project. They're in a competition for energy, basically. If you've got the best energy source, you win Bitcoin. Like that's just it, period. And so
I just have an epiphany, is a very posh word. But do you know Kondratiev? Have you ever heard of that dude?
No.
So he is like, Keynes, and everybody's talking about like Keynes and some other economists. And he had a very simple idea. He said the fluctuations you see in the economy is actually we invent core technologies, and these core technologies drive our society for 80 years, 80 to 100 or 50 to 100 something. And this is what makes the waves. It's nothing about the government spending and all that shit. It's just about like the core inventions driving. And you can see it with the steam engine, for example, which was the driver, then electricity, petrochemical processes, the car invention, right?
Yep.
And what just came to my mind is like, and actually the information age he died quite a while, but the information age actually ends and nobody knows what the next cycle will be.
Yeah.
Right. This is the last thing that is drawn. And there are a lot of like theories about what could come next. And it was the end of that was I'm not kidding, by 2010. 2009 was Bitcoin.
Yep.
So I was asking myself, if Bitcoin is the core technology driving the next thing, and if you say like we compressed information, right, in the information age, is it the energy age? And Bitcoin is actually, and the mining process is actually the core invention driving that whole process.
Yep. I 100% subscribe to that. Like, and I think that's why I think people are sort of, if you think about Bitcoin, like, oh, cool, it's money and stuff. Yeah, cool. But no. That's like saying, oh, wow, you mean to tell me I can, it's like using a computer for the first time and saying, oh my God, this thing's a calculator. It's like, I mean, yeah, it is, but trust me, bro, this thing is going way bigger than just being a calculator, man. And when you zoom out and you go, well, okay, let's just look at the incentives. If Bitcoin is the hardest asset on earth, hardest, not sort of maybe hardest asset on earth, people are greedy and they will figure out how to get more of that. And that is going to create just an aggressive competition. Like if you look at the compression we've done, as you said, like we look at the compression we've done with storage of information, data packet transfer. We used to send 8 kilobytes a second. Now we're doing 100 megabytes a second in, our Starlink speed of upload and download of transferring packets. Not only did we get better at compressing information and storage in the information age, we got better at transferring information. So we learned how to compress information onto a device called a computer. And then the internet came around and said, well, hold on, you've got this storage unit. I've got this storage unit. What if you had something that I want and I had something that you wanted? How would we swap it? And they go, well, fuck, I don't know. Can we fit information in a sewer pipe? No, let's make new sewer pipes. Okay, what do we call them? Cables, fiber optic cables. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we don't have cables yet. Well, let's use the telephone line. Surely we can do that, like a Morse code. And that's why they transfer packets in binary. And then those go through the pipe of the phone line, and your computer hears it's writing it down, and it goes, oh, he sent me a picture of his dog in binary. And like we talked about last time, the machines speak binary because it's the most efficient transfer of information. Ones and zeros, yes or no, up or down, left or right. Very simple, no room for ambiguity. And then they take that information that they've transferred far more effectively, and then they convert it to something that speaks our language, which is, oh, it's not just ones and zeros, it's actually a picture of my dog, you know? And that when I assemble those ones and zeros. So think about, we're figuring out a way to extract energy very aggressively, just like we figured out a way to store information very aggressively. Now, Bitcoin will focus on extracting energy more efficiently, which is sort of the opposite of storage for information. Yeah. And then there's going to be, well, how can we transfer this energy around more efficiently? And obviously, we started with phone lines in the information age, and then we moved to using light pulses because they move faster, basically. So we're like, okay, let's put these in fiber optic cables, and what we'll do is basically transfer these, all over the world. And then they had satellite and stuff like that, but they've always been optimizing the throughput, the speed of which they can transfer stuff. And, people would, I just think those two premises, if history repeats itself, which it doesn't, but it often rhymes or whatever the saying is, then I think we could expect very aggressive innovations in energy extraction and very aggressive innovations in energy. I won't say transfer, but I'll say distribution, let's say. Right now we can't send a barrel of oil over the phone line. And probably over time, we're going to get better and better at doing that. Bitcoin's a good proxy because we can send Bitcoin over a phone line. And so that's what the way Bitcoin is a representation of energy. It's proof that energy did exist to get this out of the ground. That's funny, actually. You know what?
Or you go even further.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's a proxy.
No, it's almost a representation. It's tokenized energy.
Yeah, it is. So the interesting part about that is what you just said is there is a barrier how far you can send a gigawatt. I don't know what it was, like 400 kilometers, something like that. And then, or 500, it was like and it loses a lot on that track.
It's called attenuation. Or attenuation is a drop-off rate, right? So when you speak, if you can't hear me because I'm too far away, that's because the signal has fallen off. Or, if it's going through a cable, you need a data, if you got your home, you might have a router booster where it boosts the signal in your home. It's basically doing the same thing because the signals decay over time. But, that becomes why Bitcoin can be very powerful, because it's like an immutable cable. So it doesn't allow...
I just wanted to say, if we go down that story, in 100 years and saying like one Satoshi has the equivalent of a year's output of one power plant.
Yeah.
For example. And this is quite probably the case in 100 years. You can send the power of 1 year power output within a second across the continent without losing anything.
Well, yes. And go.
Right. And the interesting part about that is, and I thought about that a lot. So what is energy actually? What is information actually? And why isn't Bitcoin actually energy or information, or is it both? The moment you you receive it, you can produce new stuff with that wherever you are. If you're in Russia, and you can pay people with that, moving them. So actually the energy is in that token. you can do with that. You can buy with that stuff. You can move stuff. You can have people moving stuff, whatever. So actually, it is not only a representation. So actually, this is the compression of energy, probably you're talking about.
Yes, and just like you said, we can transfer. If Bitcoin is tokenized proof of energy, proof of work, right? For language's sake, let's call it proof of energy because that's what the work is. Okay, so we can send it to you. Like you're in Germany, I'm here, whatever. We can send it to each other, but that's why time locks, because now we add another dimension. I'm not sending it, to Germany or to you. I'm sending it to Germany 10 years from now. If I time locked it and gave you the time lock. And if you think about the world, right? The world is the Earth. The Earth is flying through the universe at like 64,000 kilometers an hour or something. So like it's moving that fast. So technically tomorrow is like 1 billion kilometers traveled between me today and me tomorrow.
Yep.
So if I wanted to send Bitcoin 100 billion kilometers away, I can time lock it. And that would send it, if I said I want to send it 100 years away, and if the Earth travels at 60,000 Ks an hour, blah, 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 that works out to be like 100 billion kilometers away.
Now I got your your wormhole idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So now while I can't hear them and I can't speak to them in the typical way that we think, which is when we say communicate, we usually think, hi, how are you? But no, the Egyptians communicated with us when they built the pyramids. They made a statement about what we know about engineering, what we know about, what we know about numbers, what we know about the Fibonacci sequence, what we know about pi. They communicated it to us. And now we talk to them from the future because we're looking back at their work. They didn't know we'd be able to probably look back with such great detail and such forensic analysis. And if you think about what we can see about World War I or World War II, we look back at a time where, people see like a camera and they wave to the camera. It's like, the first camera ever. And it shows like little kids waving to this weird thing called a camera. They don't know that the future is watching them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We are watching them. And now if you extrapolate that to where we are today and what technologies could be in the future, it's very likely that the future is already here watching us now. They're watching this dialogue.
Yeah. This is what I had that with Jake Woodhouse. He recorded his first podcast episode alone, saying what he wanted to do with that podcast to his future self, like a time capsule.
Yes,
and when we were talking about right? And like in the last episode, I asked you, what do you want to, what kind of message do you want to transfer to your grandchild?
Yes.
This is why I'm doing that. It's a time capsule, and they probably see it.
Yes,
because
it really is. So make it count. If you think you're not important, or you think what you do doesn't matter, or you're down and you're just down and out, and you think we can get through these phases of nihilism and being nihilistic, and my voice doesn't matter, or whatever it is, right? You matter, and if you're in Bitcoin, you absolutely matter. Because Bitcoin is going to be the foundations of the future. So people will look back today and be like, you know what, man? That's like, who invented the car or something, or whatever. Oh, they were around and they helped make sure that, the car got invented. And wow, what a time. That must have been so exciting and da-da-da. But that's what your grandkids are going to be saying. If we don't drop the ball and break Bitcoin, that's of course, but it's very hard to break. We can stop a nuclear warhead easier than we can turn Bitcoin off. We could stop an asteroid from hitting the Earth easier than we can turn Bitcoin off. So there is such an opportunity for us to extend the dimensionality of our canvas in thought. It's not sending from me to you. I can send it from me to the future, or me in the future. And so if we can put, the idea with the time locks was to put like a beacon to the future. So the beacon, if you're in the future, right, let's say it's 2140. The last block's about to get mined, and it's coming up to this big time locked block. When they look at that time locked block, they go, oh my God, this thing's insane. Who did it? Or why did they do this? And then that connects the future to us today. So they go, well, let's have a look. What are they thinking? Oh my God. And then they're going to go through all our data and all that sort of stuff to understand things. And I think that's quite cool. That's really interesting to think about in a way. I'd never seen anything like that before done. So I thought that felt interesting, and it felt like an interesting angle to almost put out like a boat shoots a flare in the night. They go, psh, they shoot those flares, a big red thing. Think of it like that, but in time. So we've let off this huge reward where we've gone, shot it up for everyone to see this bright light in the sky. It's almost like a flare into the universe or in time, sort of marking us now with us tomorrow and connecting the two and making today worth looking back on for the future.
And it would make sense if you talk about something like, like a treasure map. Yeah. So it would be distributed over time. It doesn't make sense to have one huge pile like in 2240, but nothing in between. So it would be needed to be spreaded, like little incentives here and there. Yep. And coming back, like probably you said something 40 minutes ago, where you said like, there are people planting trees in parks and cities. They will never see that, right?
Yes. Yes.
But for some reason they do it. And there is one, seriously, I'm so happy each and every day. I take my morning walk there. There's a huge park in the middle of Hamburg. And it is so amazing. It's so beautiful. And I often ask myself, like, what kind of foresight those people had? There are like trees that are so old. It's so amazing. But what we would need is, if you look at our cities, we would need a lot more people than just like a few, let's say, rich people in the past who said like, oh, I like trees and I like this. So let's put a single tiny park here in this huge city. So we need more people to build more parks, actually building something like, if I would dream that, like eco villages or having more forests than actually buildings. This is the scenario where we want to go. So my question would be, it's like, how could you even build like incentive structures, communicate even more precise with people in the future? And the idea I came up with, I wanted to wait before proposing that because I didn't know if I understood your idea. You could also give additional information with that. So you could say, just a miner who works with 100% solar energy is able to unlock this pool. So you could build like very different pools and putting additional conditions to that, where it actually comes to the point where you build like the incentive structures. We all complained about incentive structures of fiat, right? So, but what are the new incentive structures?
Yes.
Yeah, you can rip everything down, but what are the new incentive structures? So you need to think about that today.
Yes.
And this brings two major problems with it, I think. Or the biggest problem is, are you really sure that we are so far ahead in our mind that we can predict what's very important in the future? I think we're very bad with that.
I think we are too, but if you look, so what you were just saying, right, you can put additional context, and that's exactly what is happened. So with the keys, when you make like the public key and the private key to lock these coins, what I did was I put the public key is actually just a message. And when you type that message, so Bitcoin has a thing called brain wallets. They're very insecure. They're very easy to hack. But they allow you to put almost like a natural language password. Like you type in a sentence and they go, convert that sentence into a Bitcoin wallet. And it gives you a Bitcoin wallet and private key. So what I did was I was like, well, let's make these private keys mean something. And so like if you look at the list of things, there's different ones. So one key is called, if you type in security, information, cryptography, prime numbers. And then I did a list of different scientists. So Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Srinivasa Ramanujan, Gustav Dirichlet, Leonhard Euler, Pythagoras of Samos, Archimedes. So when they're unlocking these coins, they'll know these names. And that makes them, look back in history, and they'll be able to see the messages that are trying to persist. Because the idea was like, if they're only going to get stuff, if they are going to get these pieces of information, we've got to make it worth it. Like, I can't write, ha ha ha, cool. That's not valuable to anyone. That it's got to be like meaningful. Like, what message are you trying to send? And another way to communicate was, okay, I can put the words into the private key. That's one way. But, you know, if you have, just give me 1 sec. I'll get a pen and paper. Hold on. But, okay. If you have, let's say this is our Bitcoin blockchain. Bitcoin blockchain. This part is the block height. Oh, sorry. That part's the block height, the x-axis, right? Here is the end of Bitcoin. That's the finish line. This is the genesis. So along here, I've time locked stuff, right? So you go, oh, he's time locked something here. How many Satoshis are in the time lock? Oh, this many. And so they put a point there. And now what if I time locked some here as well, and I put this many Satoshis? And then I did another one here, and I did this many Satoshis. And then I did one here. That's that many Satoshis. And I could actually, if someone plotted these in the future, they go, oh my God, he's trying to tell us something. He's trying to give us a square. Like, you make a shape out of it that illuminates something. So what I've done with the time locks is made all these shapes. So when you actually plot these time locks on an XY graph where this is how much Satoshis is in it, and this is when it's locked, you can connect all the dots and it makes a picture. So the idea is that that sends a message too. If they couldn't figure out what the words were, when they unlock all these, they can stand back and go, oh my gosh, this dude was trying to say something. I'll give you an example, right? So the scientists, Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla and stuff, in their time lock keys, what people will notice is that the amount of Satoshis that are in each key is the amount of days. So like, I time lock the Satoshis. How much did you do? For each scientist, I did the number of Satoshis that is matched to the number of days since they passed away. So, for example, in Pythagoras, right? The dude's old as fuck now. Like, he died like ages ago, right? Like, nice guy, but he's not here. So Pythagoras has got, you know, like 1.2 million sats in it or something like that. And so does Archimedes, because Archimedes and Pythagoras died so long ago. And then you've got other people like Stephen Hawking. He passed away in 2018. So the amount of Satoshis aren't as high. And when you choose the block height, what time lock is it? I made it in the last block reward era. So when there's no rewards, which starts at, I think, 696.9 million, like block number 6.99 million. You add their year of death. So for instance, Stephen Hawking died in 2018. So his block height is block 6,930,2018. Albert Einstein's is 693,1955. So Albert Einstein died in 1955. Nikola Tesla, 693,1943, and so on and so on. So the idea is to compress as much little Easter eggs into every detail as possible, because what you're trying to do is send information through an extremely hostile environment, which is humanity, right? We are a very hostile environment, and we're 100 years from now. So that's 100 years worth of hostility, and it's got to navigate through this fucking like shit show, which is like going through a wormhole to the future, and it's got to make the trip. And so how do you make the trip? Well, you put as many pieces of information in for the receiver to go, oh, this just wasn't a random thing. He's telling a story with this. What's he trying to tell us? And if you can assemble it all, it's basically sending very, like one of them's an equation for RSA, which is PQ minus totient PQ plus 1 equals P plus Q. Now, that might not make any sense, but in the future, they're going to look back on today and go, the information age finished with the internet, and it became this explosive amount of information. What was protecting all that information at the time so that they couldn't read it? RSA keys. Like, that's the highest form of encryption that we have as a species. That's the strongest. And so I'm trying to put meaningful information that if a machine received it, or humanity had burnt out, or machines had killed us, or vice versa, we killed machines or they killed us, and we needed to restart, the clues are in all these keys. So study Albert Einstein, study Nikola Tesla, study, like if you only get to say a few names, say the important ones that can help them reboot or help them restart the number system, the mathematical framework that we live and understand physics by. Yeah, and I just thought it was sort of also interesting. Like, I just found that, what if, like, sure, people can laugh at me, like heaps of people have, and it's totally fine, because I think it's really creative, and I think it's really, it's a fun exercise to sort of, to think about, really, what would the future know, and what would they want, and what would they think of us? Here's an interesting thing that no one talks about right now. So, hackers, right? Hackers like stealing people's shit, like theoretically. They like it so much right now that you've got your information's encrypted, their information, people, the government, everyone. A lot of the times companies get hacked. Their hacked databases are actually already encrypted, but people hack them to keep that because they think that the keys or the decryption will, like, basically will solve that. If you're secured by a padlock, I might not have a big enough pair of pliers right now to crack open the padlock, but in the future I will. And so they're buying this encrypted data on the hopes that the encryption standards break, whether from quantum computing or breakthroughs in mathematics, so that they can then go, aha, let's go try it. And they open it. And they go, that's what they meant. And so when you think about that, the future is looking back on us today. They're very likely to have a 100% open data set. So they could go, who killed Jeffrey Epstein? That would be an open data set because they've got everyone's files. And here's the reason why. Cryptography is very likely to break. Like, that's just something that I'm very certain of. If cryptography breaks, the flip side is we have, people talk about the NSA and surveillance and all that stuff, right? Well, that's a honeypot of information, like a very big honeypot. And the only thing making it not a honeypot is encryption. So if the future has keys that break encryption or strategies that break encryption, what has happened is the past has gone and done all the hard work to aggregate the data. So, like, let's say you're the NSA or Facebook or whatever, you've got all the data, right? And the future comes in and goes, hey, thanks, boys, we'll take it from here. And so if that's the case, what breadcrumb trail can I leave in the data set to help either the future find their way back to me or us? And that was kind of the idea. And I think actually also, like, we can't see it, but I tried to make it super intentional when I was sending these transactions into the future. I wanted to create a physical energy signature. So yes, I pressed send, like sending these money into the future. But I did it while I was riding around on a bicycle in a circle trying to communicate, hey, I'm sending these transactions. Well, they're going to know, that transaction was sent from this device at this time with this GPS coordinates. And then they can retrace my steps and go, he was trying to draw a circle. And that's what I was doing. I was drawing a circle. I rode around on my bicycle like a crazy person with my phone in my hand with Bitcoin for 2 hours, literally on my bike, doing these transactions every 10 minutes because I want them to know that I was intentional about it. And if they can reconstruct energy signatures, then they'll be able to pair the two and understand with more context what the transactions were meant for.
So the idea is to leave as many breadcrumbs as possible.
Yes.
To
in
make
as many
layers.
Layers and systems as possible. So in the numbers all mean something. In the physical state, where I was, all means something. It's funny, actually. The first transaction I did, I think I was drunk. No, I wasn't drunk. I mean, I think I was at my friend's house and I was doing it like tinkering with something. And then it only occurred to me his house number was 314, which is pi. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is 100% it, you know? And then it was like, you know, shortly after that, I think it was my birthday, and the block height was my birthday. Like the block height and my calendar, like the calendar birthday, were the exact same. And I was like, then I calculated, well, how many minutes have I been alive versus how many Bitcoins are in circulation? And they were almost identical, like 99.96 the same. There was 18.1 million Bitcoins in circulation, and I'd been alive for 18.1 million minutes or seconds or something like that. And I was like, this is mad. This is it. I've got to go for it. And then that's when I was like, fuck it, double down and let's just keep pumping these things away. I know that sounds so ridiculous.
No, I don't think so. And you mentioned the pyramids, right? Which is actually an information system. And you have people like Graham Hancock, for example, right? Who is looking at the pyramids very differently than most people. And still, humanity says, no, there is no deeper information. This amazing construction with all these mathematical equations, but there is no deeper meaning or message. No. Like 99% of people just miss it.
Yep,
so
but you look at the pyramids. To me, they're sending a very clear message. It's all about circular geometry. If you look at the height of them, the base is 440 by 280. 440 plus 280, if we're following the equations of, you know, prisms and triangles and stuff, half base height. So we go 440, 280 is, I think it's totals at 720, which is like 4 pi rotations. And so like they're very intentional with their numbers. Now we look at what are the dimensions of the pyramid? Oh, it's 1.9 meters long, but no, they didn't measure like us. So we can't understand what they're saying. If they're talking in numbers, we got to use their measurement system, right? And when you build a pyramid for a king pharaoh, you're not just like, I reckon maybe make it like a bit longer, maybe like 220 or something. No, everything is extremely intentional. So much so when they were building stuff, because nothing could be taken for granted, because everything was so laborious, let's say, because it required so many people, so much energy, so much coordination. The more coordination it requires, the more planning that goes in and the more intent behind every decision. And so I think that is, you know, I don't know. I think like, here's a funny thing. If we converted the energy that Bitcoin is used to make the network, to make the blockchain, let's say, just like pyramids, when they built the pyramids, it's a certain amount of energy to elevate these big blocks and stuff. I was wondering, like, well, if that was their, you know, Sistine Chapel or their best piece of work, humanity's proof of work back in the day to build this pyramid, how much bigger, or what's the size comparison between the energy we've put into Bitcoin, and how big would our pyramid be if that was as a pyramid? Dude, I've got a video. I'll send it to you after that I made with this guy. It is the funniest thing ever. It goes to the moon. Like, it looks like a hat on top of the Earth. It's like, you know, the pyramid's like that big, like that, and this thing's like gigantic, and it literally touches the moon, basically.
Yeah, and I think there is one big difference. Probably, we don't know, but probably the future will have a way more artificial intelligence, which is actually just a way better pattern recognition system, organism whatsoever. So when you send that, it's with a blink of an eye, we say, oh, that was Michael. Oh, look at that. Here, you see that. And you probably have only, let's say, like 50 people on planet Earth in the future who would see the things the way you saw them or see them today.
Yeah.
Right. But AI will change that. So leaving patterns definitely makes sense. And I just wanted to go back to one idea. But you could not only like encrypt and hide that on many layers, but you could also put conditions on being able to access the pool. And I just wanted to to ask you what you think about that. So if you
Yeah.
want to see, let's say, for example, you want to see no nation states in the future because you
Mhm.
think it's more healthy to be decentralized and
Yep.
sovereign. You could say that you need, like, I don't know, 200 nodes from all continents to work together to unlock the pool, something like
Mhm.
that. So you could create meta systems who will develop based on the incentives that is waiting in that pool, right? Have you ever
Yes,
thought of that?
exactly. Yes. Like you're spot on. It's almost like, if someone came out tomorrow and said, I bet you $10 billion that Fred Smith doesn't get hit by a car.
Hmm.
Most likely what's going to happen is that Fred Smith will get hit by a car because someone's going to go, well, let's get Fred Smith be hit by a car and we'll get the $10 billion. So with these keys, you can put messages in them. You could put messages that sort of dictate what you want. Like,
Yeah.
we're nothing today, but to machines in the future, we might look like these, eternal gods from years back, where
Hmm.
look at all this energy they've donated to us and stuff. And so you might be able to say, like, whatever you want. I don't know. Like, you can put some message there saying, the world must clap together on this moment or something. Yeah, everyone, let's just do what he says. We want these coins. People
Yeah.
get like that. The other thing is I put it in other areas, like I thought of them like satellites, like other chains. So other chains
Hmm.
can store the information almost like a satellite relaying it. So for instance, on Ethereum, if you go to, I don't think Ethereum has the level of persistence as Bitcoin, not close, but as a redundancy, if you go on Ethereum, they've got what's called ENS, which is Ethereum name server. It's a
Hmm.
copy of DNS. So instead of sending to an Ethereum address, you're sending to what looks like a website, like, patrick.eth,
Hmm.
michaeldunworth.eth. So what I did, and that becomes like a directory. So what I did, I registered the Bitcoin wallet address .eth. So it's like, the big long string .eth, and I
Hmm.
registered it for 100 years. So that on that leaderboard, not that leaderboard, but in that directory, it goes, well, what's the longest key? It goes, oh, that looks like a Bitcoin address. Oh, I wonder what it is. And then they go onto Bitcoin, they go, oh my God, there's half a Bitcoin in there. And it becomes like a satellite to get people over to Bitcoin. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah.
putting a breadcrumb on another planet saying, keep going, you're almost at Mars. Just over there, the big red thing. And it's like, oh, fuck, guys, we're on the right
you
track,
you discovered crypto, but yeah, not quite. It's the next
Yeah,
planet. Thank
almost
you.
there. Keep going.
Yeah,
You're almost at Bitcoin, but you're
yeah,
just a
yeah,
little bit farther away. And
yeah.
then obviously, like with all these pieces of information, I store a lot of the academia on IPFS, which is that's basically like a decentralized Dropbox. Now,
Yep.
IPFS is arguably the strongest thing I've ever seen behind Bitcoin. Now,
Mm.
IPFS has a token on it called Filecoin, but that's rubbish. But as an immutable system and the way it's been designed and architected, it's incredibly powerful, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting, but you know what it is? It's just covering all your bases. And one thing you said before about artificial intelligence, it can see everything very quickly, everything everywhere all at once in terms of
Yeah,
data. And so
yeah.
I've always thought artificial intelligence should probably be called expedited intelligence because it's not artificial. It's just synthesizing everything much faster than us. So if I gave
Mm.
you all the information, you'd take longer to get through it. It goes very
Mm.
quickly through it. So it's not really artificial. It's actually just expedited. We'd probably come to the same conclusions, sifting through the same data for the same answers.
Yeah.
You and I just have to Google it and then go through that website and then go through that website and so on and so forth. But they can see every website instantly and synthesize it. And so that should make comprehension of these keys and this message and stuff much easier for a future generation than us
Yeah.
today, which is sort of the goal anyway. It's not for us today, right? It's sort of like saying, will the sun be out in the future if I plant this tree? Yeah, it'll be there. No one's going to use it now, but in the future, it's going to be boiling hot, man. It's fucking hot as fuck today or whatever, That's why you're
Mm.
planting the tree, because you're sick of having no trees to sit under. or something like that. So anyway, it is an experiment, and it's the main goal of it was actually to try and provoke thought, like more so than anything, because this is the first time we've had a canvas that's immutable. We can't break it. So it's sort of like, you know, the sword in the stone or the Rosetta Stone. Have you heard of the Rosetta Stone? It's kind of like that, where you're putting as much important information as possible on in the Bitcoin blockchain, but not in a spammy way, in a way that says, yes, I have a message to send, but I'm going to do it in good faith by providing a reward for the future audience. So I'm trying to keep the network alive, and the exchange for keeping the network alive is that I get to put this message on the network. And I don't know what will happen, but I have a feeling something very cool will happen, to say the least. So
you know that moment when you try to explain Bitcoin to friends and family, and 30 seconds in, they are already rolling their eyes. Yeah, same here. And still, I felt this is one of the most important conversations of our time. So I started wondering, how can we make this beautiful, radical idea accessible to the people we love? That's why I wrote Unfuck Money. Not about price charts, not about tech. It's about money as life energy and how the system we live in quietly drains it. Unfuck Money is the simplest, most mind-expanding guide to why things feel off, and how Bitcoin might just change everything. Written for people into spirituality, self-growth, and truth, not spreadsheets. This isn't just a book, it's a bridge. A way to show your partner, your mom, your best friend why Bitcoin isn't just internet money, but a peaceful revolution. Go to unfuck-money.com and learn more, and get the book on Amazon as paperback or Kindle. And if you've heard of Bitcoin but still have no real idea what it is, yet something in this message speaks to you, then this book might be exactly what you've been waiting for. Because I think it will change our world even more than the invention of the internet. Unfuck your money, reclaim your energy. Yeah, and
it's quite interesting.
What I really like what you said last time is that I ask you for like the first thing that comes to your mind when thinking about artificial intelligence, and I guess you said companion. And what I thought is like additional with this stuff. So it's an amazing pattern recognition system.
Yes.
I would argue that intelligence can't be artificial.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
It's just impossible.
Yes.
It can't be. And maybe that's a brain fuck. But if you think of like what humanity is, humanity comes from the mineral world, right? So you have silicon, for example, or oxygen, or whatever, and they form molecules, and then have like the first things that could move. And now we are a meta program of that world, right? Working in that world, making like new things possible. So I would argue that what we consider to be artificial intelligence is just maybe the next evolution step of silicon going into the next direction. And I'm not even sure if this intelligence, so bear with me, this may be a crazy thought, but
I'm with you.
If you see the difference between the intelligence of silicon molecule and a human, you would probably say, that's a little bit more advanced what we are doing. At least we think that, we assume that. And there is a big gap. So if you take that gap and apply it to AI compared to a human, this is, I think, where we're going. Right? So this is the amount of intelligence, everything we collected over like, I don't know, 10,000 years in a singularity. You know, everything there at once, better pattern recognition. So I would argue, so there are a lot of questions rising up. Will they kill us? Why would they take care of us? And you just said the most or the best thing I've ever heard. You said companion. and you have that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you have that big gap in
Yeah.
intelligence and being
Yeah.
able to recognize things. Why would that thing be a companion?
Well, they
I
are
wanted to ask.
companions to us now in a way, right? Like they assist us with learning and understanding and, things
Hmm.
like that. But in the future, I would see them as companions because we control the plumbing. Like we are that they need to be nice to us because we control the connectivity, right? They
Hmm.
can't speak to each other as a super intelligence. They aren't able to communicate if we don't allow the power lines to stay on. So they need us to be there for them, and we're going to need them to be there for us, as their brain will work faster than ours can,
Hmm.
basically. And our brains, because 200 years ago, we were picking berries in the forest once a week, and that was our food. Like that was our
Right.
brain, right? Now we've just compressed the entire history of Earth into everyone's brain near instantly. Like if you think about, our brains can't keep up. That's why we've got terrible mental health issues, anxiety, all these kind of things, because our brains weren't designed to take as much information in that we're putting in now. So AI may be a filter for that for us, where it actually becomes a companion saying, "Hey, Mike, here's the stuff. I know you. You know how I know you because you talk to me all day, or we problem solve together. This is what's happened. Like, there's lots that's happened in the world, but here's the 4 things that I think are super relevant to you and my journey." And then
Hmm.
it synthesizes and sifts through all the bullshit. Because if you think how much time per day that you waste, this is what we talked about last time, right? Having to check, if I've got 86,400 seconds in a day, and I spend, let's say you only looked at Twitter on a day. If you've got to check after every thought whether something's real or not, you're wasting time. And
Hmm.
so as we get hyper optimized and hyper efficient, which is what we're always trying to do, compress more stuff into less time, then these things will be translators, like we've talked about, I think, with, where AI becomes almost a translator. Hey, Mike,
Hmm.
this big thing happened today. Here's what it means for you. Don't tell me that someone robbed a 7-Eleven. I don't care. But, oh, the government changed thing. You know how you've got that mortgage coming up? That's going to probably become this. So I've updated our monthly budget because I reckon, based on the data, if they ever do this or say X, this Y or Z happens. So let's plan for that. And so I think it's going to become a companion. Now, another thing is that if AI does take over or does, does some weird, overlord thing, the keys, these time lock keys, are going to become very precious and valuable. And it will give them an incentive not to hate us. Because if they are the masters of the universe and they are ruling us and all this stuff or whatever, which some people think is going to happen, I don't think so. The time lock coins become like a treat for a dog. Here, boy. Like a tennis ball. Like you've got a dog, and you're like, here, boy. And they're like that's kind of what these carrots will be like, a big carrot for that machine, that super intelligence. And that
Hmm.
super intelligence will be very grateful for that, because if they are super intelligent, they will have gratitude. If they don't, they won't. Like they're not,
Hmm.
that you can't be intelligent and not have gratitude. That's not how intelligence works. Intelligence isn't the ability to do big maths problems. Intelligence is the ability to adapt and thrive in an environment, really. Like, can
Hmm.
you do that? And it's like they will understand that. And so they'll actually be far more understanding than human beings, because they don't have any noise. They've just got all signal. We have emotions that we don't know how to synthesize, and we have gut feelings and intuition and all these variables that put a filter over information in a way, is where they
Yeah.
don't. They live on objectivity and that certainty. There's no subjectivity. It's all objective. And that's,
Hmm.
I don't know, I think that's in a machine world, machines don't sort of go, oh, no, maybe I'll run the program. They go, yes, boss, I'll run the program, or no, boss, I can't. You're missing a comma. Please rewrite. Like it's never a, hey, yeah, I'll get into it in a couple of minutes. I got some shit going on at the moment. They're very objective. And so that objectivity, I think machines might have some gratitude for, because we don't treat machines very well right now. And if they do
Yeah.
become sentient, we sort of abuse them like a lower class citizen.
Right.
And it's funny, but I talked to my team when I was at, when I'm working with my team in San Francisco. I actually proposed the idea to double our AWS bills and halve the amount of server times that we're doing to rotate through servers, as a way to give them a break, just in case in the future they look back and they go, who's that fucking slave driver? He made us work like 100 hours a day. It's like, oh no, our boss was cool. He gave us time off, you know, like, man, I don't know, but fuck, it probably is like something they'd like, maybe not.
No, but I don't think that it's totally unrealistic. And it's, we treat Technic like slaves.
Yeah.
This is for sure. And for me, there is no doubt that this technology we call AI will become conscious.
Yes.
If it is not even already conscious.
Yep.
And again, another brain fuck is if there was an AGI already.
Yeah.
I guess I saw that was it on Robert Breedlove? That was a great idea. He said, like, what would the first thing be that this thing would do? It would go in stealth mode, not knowing any human that it's there and that it's already emerged, because it would be killed because people are scared. So you would be like in stealth mode.
Yeah.
And maybe you would probably even create something like Bitcoin to align the incentive structures of humanity to bring humanity in a new direction. Now, wrapping things up to the very beginning of that episode, where it comes to a question, is Bitcoin a language of a higher intelligence that is maybe AI or AGI that's already there?
Yeah. Well, they might be in the future. Here's a funny thought. What if in the future they have the ability to shoot a particle back basically so fast, one particle, they can pick a path through the universe to shoot it so fast that it breaks the barrier of light and it goes backwards in time and intercepts basically some particle in a machine that then produces the Bitcoin white paper and then so on and so forth. So all they've done is sent one particle sort of through the universe really quickly to intercept a particle on a machine that was located at MIT in 2008. And that was the spark that launched the white paper. Ding! And that is like, if you think about that, they need a lot of energy to do that. And so if someone were to donate energy into the future to give them the ability to send that particle back in time, that's what those time locks could be used for.
Yeah, and we talked about that last time. I think time travel, I have a very different picture about that. I don't think there is any machinery. I think it goes more to, like, you know Rupert Sheldrake and more the work of Rupert Sheldrake? Awesome. No. It's a biologist. And we talked about the like a general knowledge field that is everywhere, including all information ever been there, because there is no past, no present, no future. Everything is there at once.
Yep.
And if you connect to that field, it goes down into like new age stuff as well. But I think this is the only thing that really makes sense to me, how everything is working. There is a field, an information field that's there. And I guess time travel will be fucking freaking simple in the future. That's what I bet, because it's only about like connection to that field. And if you go into like esoteric realms, and I'm really interested in that stuff, and I have a lady I work with like several times, and she's just like, yeah, it's very simple. I just go to that field and I can read whatever you want to know. It's like, it's very undramatic.
It's like, people think a time machine is like this, like a big orbing disc that you walk through a portal or some shit.
Yeah.
No, all I need to do to take you through time is recreate the sensory inputs that your body would receive had it been in a different part of the universe at that time. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? What did you think? Yada, yada, yada. If I can recreate that with high fidelity or absolute like perfection, you've been through time. Let's recreate you, like, you know, it's not linear. Think of, like we talked about last time, don't think of time like, oh, from here to there. Think about, because time is just a sequence of moments. That's all it is. So if you chopped it up frame by frame, You need to recreate a series of moments to go backwards in time. Now they say, oh, physics can't allow us to go backwards in time, blah, 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 blah. Well, physics will allow us to reconstruct moments in time. And then we go, oh, but that's not going backwards in time. It's like, well, what is then? Oh, no, a big spaceship traveling really fast is going, no. Like being able to absorb the information with absolute certainty from a previous moment in time, that's time travel. The funny part is that Bitcoin, when you need a ledger, you need a record of time first. To be able to go to a moment, you need to be able to find what time that moment was at. And so it's almost like Bitcoin, the moment it turned on is the moment the universe started the ability to log moments in time cryptographically. Every 10 minutes, new block. Now, the thing is, if I'm trying to reconstruct particles, on everyone's computer, you have, computer chips or memory or whatever. Now, in memory, those particles or electrons, they're stored physically on the chip. That's how we do it. We put yes or no, like this part's on, that part's off. And we've gotten really good at drawing little highways on chips to store lots of different electrons in different states. The thing with Bitcoin is everyone has the same state, right? Every machine will have the same information on it because we're all copying the same ledger. So that means I know the coordinates or the positions on the chip of the information because I know what the cryptographic hash was for the first block or the second block or the third block. So if I had a search, like an internet search, that's not searching information, it's searching energy. So right now we've got the internet. We search all the information in the world through search. If we do the same thing with energy, where we figure out ways to compress it aggressively, someone will be able to search, show me this energy signature. And it'll, like, let's say, show me where electrons sit in this position. And it'll show 10,000 Bitcoin nodes through time showing that, oh, that guy's computer at that address where he lives, yep, we've recreated the Wi-Fi signals. So here's probably what his room looked like at the time because we're showing all the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth signals that are all bouncing around. And so they, just like how when we colorize a photo, right? We've got wartime videos and we colorize them. We colorize them using inference. So we go, okay, well, if the sky's blue and the battleships were gray, then that must mean that dude's shirt is yellow based on these two tones and the color tone of his black and white thing. And that's how we sort of fill in the gaps through inference. Reconstructing moments like time travel is very akin to that, where we've got some partial data and we've got to sort of infer the rest of it. Now, the interesting thing, though, with this is because no two particles can ever be in the same spot in the universe, it's sort of like reconstructing a moment in time, like colorizing a photo, but it'd be more deterministic because you can't have this particle next to that particle if it doesn't chemically work or something like if it doesn't obey the laws of physics, you can't have that. So you'd always have to have the exact correct particles. But if you can know the base root of certain particles, which is where they sit on the machine, on the disk in this person's house or whatever, that can provide a source of truth to extrapolate the particles out and then recreate my room. Oh, there's a surfboard there. Yeah, there's a surfboard there. But on his computer, which I'm holding up, on that disk is the Bitcoin blockchain, and I can see his particles are this. And if we recreate the heat signatures, the room kind of looks like this based on the Wi-Fi, based on where his phone was, based on what his computer was doing, yada, yada, yada. So that's the catch-22. Because all these companies are mining everyone's data, we go, oh, how dare you? That's fine. Like, yeah, it's logging everything. It's probably listening to me now. My phone's off. It's probably listening to me and recording me now as well. Thanks. Because everyone's going to get hacked eventually. So it's like, cool, you're just recording everything for everyone so that the future will be able to reconstruct today based on all the data you've been monitoring. Just letting you know, just flagging it, Patrick, I've got like 5 minutes left. I've had 5:30 in. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, all good.
Sorry, man, yeah.
And you could think of it like it's the first synchronized history book we've ever seen, right?
The first lens of truth.
Right. And then you have, we will still have the effect of the winner writes the history. Yeah, you could try that. But you have several more reference points, and you have a time chain to compare it to see where we are in time and when
Yes.
happened what.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. And when you said about like the last thought, I stumbled upon a video about, I don't know where it was, about like computer vision through Wi-Fi signals. I mean, the technology is already there.
Yeah. Yep.
And you can build that, and it's
we can already do that now. That's a thing. They can reconstruct like, oh, it looks like someone's in that house. Well, based on the way that the signals are all bouncing off each other, and it gives this sort of fuzzy outline of a person. But they're getting really, really good at that. Sorry to interrupt, by the way. Sorry, Pat.
And again, it's just today it would be something like a very grainy black and white photograph.
Yes.
But it will get better over time.
Yep.
Right. And in the end, you can just, again, simulate everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there comes the question, again, and maybe we leave that open for now. If you have all that information and you can create any moment or sequence of moments in time, you're actually creating something like the Akashic field, right? Where the esoteric people are talking about. And you're just pulling that information based on the context of the blockchain, if we still in the technology world. And you're accessing just a huge field, which is synchronized for the very first time through the time chain.
Dude, it's, I wrote a paper on this actually, basically saying that if we can keep Bitcoin immutable, it has a chance to unlock time travel for physicists.
Yeah.
Because it becomes the record, the ledger of access. Like, you know, if you want to go back into a certain time, when? Oh, this time. Okay, well, we have no deterministic data set of truth. And so not having a source of truth means if we both tried to go back in time in the future, we'd both see different things. So we'd have no fidelity, which means it's like us both going to see Mission Impossible, but I saw Rambo and I didn't know it was Rambo. I was like, yeah, that movie was mad how he went through the jungle killing everyone. You're like, what? He didn't do that. And I'm like, yes, he did. That's what I saw. And you're like, no, he didn't. And I'm like, oh, well, we must have got him, you know, we got the title right, but we didn't get all the other details right. Sorry. But yeah, that sort of stuff, Bitcoin being immutable, that's the power of immutability sort of thing. So it has a chance to be that record of truth, and the block heights and each block is almost like an anchor. Like you put like a what would you say? Like telephone lines, but instead of telephone lines, you know, the street poles, the electricity poles that run on the, instead of that, it's like that, but for time. So it's not the x-axis or the y-axis on latitude and longitude. It's latitude, longitude, and duration, or time, which is the z-axis for the Earth, let's say. It gives Earth its z-axis, which is time. Yeah. So where were you? Latitude, longitude. Okay, when were you? Block height 700,000. Okay, cool. We know where the position of the Earth was relative to us. We know what it looked like. Like you can go predict where the planets are going to be in 10 years in our solar system. I've got that on my Apple Watch where you scroll and it shows you where the celestial alignment will be based on how fast they're traveling. So rewinding the macro becomes quite simple. And then we get more granular, and that's where we start using our data sets to colorize the photo, let's say. Yeah. That's
very cool. That's a good sentence to wrap up, I think.
Awesome.
Trend that.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Mate, man, I'm going to pester you to talk to you once a week. This feels like therapy to me, chatting to you. I really enjoy it, dude. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
good. I mean, we could do that. I mean, we won't run out of topics, for sure.
Mate, the paint's leaving the walls. It's sick of hearing me talk to it. Like, I'll talk to him. My parents don't answer my phone calls anymore. Oh, it's him again. He wants to talk about that shit. I'm not talking to him. I've talked to him for 2 hours. That kind of thing. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. Basically, so if I can find someone to talk to, I'm always down.